theon.
Cross
with a P. Cross. Ton. Theon. That is a new one. Right there. Cross, ton, theon. Kai. Theos. Aim. Hologos. So a couple things to notice. Well, something that jumped out of Carlo was that there's two different words for thee. Really, there's more like 24 different words for thee. We'll talk about that in a minute. Anything else you notice that's weird or different?
Is God? It might be me. That's all right.
Say it.
I was looking at God. The spelling different.
Oh, okay. So this is theon with a new on the end, and this is theos. It's the same word. It's got a different grammatical function there. We'll talk about that in just a minute. Anything else anyone wants to point out? Okay, so a couple things. Since we're not going to go too deep into the grammar here, has everybody got this written down? Okay. Let's hit on those points real fast. Languages work differently. English works different than Chinese. Chinese works different than Arabic. Arabic works different than French. French works different than Greek. English works different than Greek. Different toolboxes have different tools, right? If you got used to using a screwdriver and you had plenty of screws and that's what you used to join things together, then you might not need a wrench and a bolt, or you might not need glue, So if your language, your toolbox works in a certain way and gives the meaning that it needs to give, because that's the only goal of language, right? The goal of language is to get an idea from my head into your head. Clearly, all right? It can be done in a bunch of different ways, right? In English, I put something on the table. In another language, the table on, I put something, In English, I went to the store, but in another language, I might not have a different tense. I might just move the word around to a different place. So if you talk about languages, you can talk about them being on a spectrum, all right? And you can talk about an aspect of a language, like word order, all right? And you can put different languages on the spectrum and say, for some languages, word order is very important. And you can say, for other languages, it's not so important. And English would probably be right here, next to French. And Chinese would probably be way over here, because word order is my understanding, I don't really know Chinese, but my understanding is that word order is very important in Chinese. Latin would be way over here. And Greek would be sort of closer to Latin. The word order doesn't matter so much, which is why that last sentence, and God was the Word, we translated and the Word was God, because when you look at it and you have a good understanding of Greek grammar, you can understand that the subject of that sentence is the Word, even though the order is different in Greek. Alright, now, word order is very important in English, moderately important, more important than in Greek, right? So if we switch word order around in English, it switches the meaning of things, right? Example, Jack loves Joan. We've got the lover and we've got the beloved. Switch the order around. Joan loves Jack. Switches the meaning around, right? This sentence, who's doing the loving? Jack. And who is the person loved? Joan. This sentence, who's the person doing the loving? Joan. And who's the person being loved? Jack. All right. Grammatically, we talk about this is the subject and this is the object. All right. Only point I want you to get right now is in English, when you switch the words around, it changes the meaning. All right. However, I love her. I switch the order around. Her, love, I. Does that work? No. What do you got to do?
Change the order.
What?
Change the order.
Change the order? We already changed the order. I love her. If I want to flip the meaning around.
Change the person.
All right, so what would the sentence be?
She loves me. She loves me.
She loves me. All right? We would change the form of the word. All right, so most sentences in English, switching the order around will do the trick. But then when you get to those words like I, you, we, they, you got to do a little more. You got to switch the form around. All right? This is why word order doesn't matter as much in Greek, because they have different forms for every noun. All right? So Kiwi noticed that in one sentence we had theon, and in another part of that sentence we had theos, right? Because it's functioning different grammatically. All right. What's the first time this word occurs? What's the sentence? And the word.
Was with God.
And the word was with God. All right. We'll just say with God because in English that's the way we normally translate it. The word was with God because it's with the word with. It's functioning different in the language, different in the grammar than in the next sentence. The word was God. So that's why the form changes. All right? So, Jack loves Joan. Joan loves Jack. Y'all copy this one down real fast. Paul. Hated. Agapa. Ton. Kuyon. The Father loves the Son. If we're talking about God the Father and Jesus, this is how we write it. Ha pater agapa ton huion. Given everything that I just told you about how in English word order is more important than in Greek, how in Greek word order is more flexible than in English, how in Greek, just like we have to switch between I and me and she and her, in Greek you have to switch between different forms of each noun. This means the Father loves the Son. If I switch the order around and I make it ton, huion, agapa, ha, pater. What do you think that means? This is the Father loves the Son.
The Son.
The Son loves the Father. The Son. The Son loves.
Loves. It ain't the Son loves the Father.
The
Son.
The Son
So this is sentence We'll say this is sentence 1, this is sentence 2. I know I wrote it upside down. The Father loves the Son. This is still the Father loves the Son.
Is it?
Yeah, it's still the Father loves the Son. Remember what I said? You can flip Jack and Joan around. Jack loves Joan,
Yeah.
Joan loves Jack. But you can't flip I and she around. I love her, her love I doesn't make sense. You gotta change the form of the word. You gotta change the form of the word in Greek whenever you change the meaning. Okay? So, this is sentence 1. The Father loves the Son. Repeat after me. Ha pater, agapa. That means love. Agape. Ha pater, agapa, ton huion. Notice, spell it out for me. Can anyone spell it out for me? What's that letter?
A.
Yeah.
I want to go back to my room. Right.
Say, the.
Yeah.
What is that letter? Alpha.
Alpha. Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
Gamma.
oh.
Alpha.
Pi. Alpha.
Alpha.
Okay. So, the Father loves the Son. Now, repeat after me. Ton huion. That's a hui with an H. Not qui. Hui. With a little H on the front. Ton huion. Agapa. Ha pater. Means the same thing. The Father loves the Son. The form hasn't changed. Sentence 3 is going to be when I change the form. So, y'all have that written down? I'm sorry. Did y'all have that written down?
I didn't
I
have
got
the
the
second.
Father loves the Son.
I got the first one.
Okay, well, let's do it like this. This is what I had written down.
Okay. Now, let's get that one.
If I want to make it the Son loves the Father, I got to change the order. Doesn't matter here. Order doesn't matter here. Now, I'll give you this. For the most part, a Greek sentence is going to have a word order that's similar to English. It's not going to be jumbled around like crazy. But it is more fluid than English, and you can move the words around more freely than you can in English. So, this is a valid, grammatically correct sentence in Greek, and it means the Father loves the Son, even though the order is different. If I want to say the Son loves the Father, I have to change the form. All right? Ha, huios, agapa,
There's no power you put all things.
ton,
Confused.
patera. See what happened? Ton huion goes to ha huios. Ha pater goes to ton patera. The form is what matters. Which is why in that last sentence that you wrote down,
Just number 3?
yeah, this would be number 3 right here. This is 2 what I had written down. Okay. Okay. So I'm gonna do like I said, and I'm not gonna boggle you down. You got this?
No,
No? Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You got the second one at least?
I got the first one. Yeah, I'm writing the bottom.
Y'all got the top one?
Yeah, I got the bottom.
You got the top one, Mel?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not going to slam you with all the grammatical terms for it. I just want you to realize that that's why you'll see these little changes. And you'll see theon with a nu in one context and theos with a sigma in another context. It's not that the meaning of the word is changing a lot. It's not that it's a different word. It's just the form is changing because the sentence is changing. You know, a sentence like God loves me is different grammatically than a sentence like, I love God.
And what they say?
Ho huios agapa ton patera. The Son loves the Father. And you'll see that both of those nouns changed form because the sentence inverted its meaning, changed its meaning around. Okay, so because of that, because that's the way the Greek language works, there's a lot of forms to memorize. We know at least, right now, we know at least 2 forms of the word huios. We know ha huios and we know ton huion. There's other forms of it. We could go on and we could talk about, well, what if I wanted to say the son's book bag? We need a different form of the word. Or if I wanted to say more than one son, like plural, the sons, there'd be more than one word for that. It would change form. So, we good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Verse 2. Hutos. Repeat after me. Hutos. Hutos. Main. In. Arche. Cross. Ton. Theon.
What's the symbols above the bullet?
Really want to go into that right now? Alright, so for now, here's what is helpful. That's a good question. That's a fair question. There's no letter H in Greek. Alright? This word means in. We already did that, right? In beginning. John's very repetitive as a writer. He repeats ideas a lot, which is probably because he's trying to hammer in theology into the heads of a bunch of pagans. This is pronounced N. Repeat after me, N.
Yeah.
If I switch this around and I make it this, it becomes hin, which is the word one, like the number 1. All right. So that's one thing that those marks mean. This is arche, but if I switch that first mark around, if I switch it around from being a curve that way to being a curve this way, it becomes harche. So there's no H letter in Greek, but there is a change of mark to indicate how it's pronounced. It's called a breathing mark. So that's why this is not utos, it's hutos, because it's curved that way.
I mean, because I've been writing and hopefully I'm writing curves the right way.
Okay.
I mean,
I'm not going to hammer that right now. That's what that mark means, though. So utos versus hutos. This is hutos, and you know it's hutos because it's curved that way. So if you see that little breathing mark, you just look which way it's curved. That's ain, not hain. If it were hain and it were curved this way, it would mean which. Like, which one are you talking about? It would be that one. But it's ain. The other marks, for now, just tell you which syllable is being stressed. So it's not hutos, it's hutos. This is the syllable. Like in English, you go to England, and instead of saying administrative, they say administrative. Or instead of saying obligatory, they say obligatory. They accent the words different. That's what's happening with these marks. So these marks tell you which.
it's important.
Yeah, it's not RK, it's RK. RK. And it's not theon, it's theon. So that's what they mean. All right, if I tell you this means this, y'all can tell me the rest, right?
This was. In.
Look back at verse 1.
It ain't. The. Was.
This is the.
The.
What is cross?
What?
What is cross? Look back to verse 1.
With.
With.
The. God.
God. That's where we get our word theology from. Right? Theology, the study of God. Theos means God in Greek. Okay. Y'all take a break from writing. As soon as you finish that, take a break from writing. I'm only going to give you one homework assignment.
Oh,
Side
right
by side.
All right now.
It is, I mean,
Huh?
it's good, I like it.
You like it? You like it like you like black coffee? Like you,
Yeah, I
I'm
like
trying to
it.
like it. You like it like you like red wine? Oh, I'm trying to like it.
Trying.
Okay. Open your English Bibles and your Greek Bibles, okay? And both of them should be in John chapter 1. I'll write anything on the board you want me to write on the board. When we do a homework assignment, which I'm gonna pass making you. This is going to be a homework assignment one night. I'm going to give you a verse. I'm going to have you look at the Greek on one side and look at the English on the other side. I'm going to have you go word by word and do your best to figure out what each word is. And it doesn't have to be perfect. That's the reason I want you to write it out, space it out, so that when you go back and fill it in, you can go word for word and figure out what each word means. And John, as a writer, is so repetitive that you can kind of figure this out even if you don't know Greek. Because if you see a word 2 times in Greek, and you look at the English translation and you see a word 2 times, you can sort of say, that's probably the same word there. Alright, so that's what we're going to do when we get to verse 4 again. Alright, everyone looking at 3? Anybody, what is that first letter? I'll pronounce it for you.
Verse 3.
Verse 3.
Verse 3?
That's pie.
It is pi. Good. Alright, so that word is panta. Panta di autu. Panta di autu. All things through him. All things through him.
So the first 3.
Go ahead, John.
No, you finna write it away.
All things, or everything, or all that is. All things. D. It's a contraction of the word dia. Through. Autu. What is the autu referring to? Who is him or it? Who is that?
God.
Nope.
No.
Well, theologically, yes, it is God. But grammatically, it's referring back to word. Logos. Logos. The logos, that's a big word. Write it down if you haven't written it down yet. Logos means word. It has a much bigger sense in Greek, though. It can mean reason. In a legal context, it means an argument, a line of argument. So it's not just a sound that means something. It's something spoken. It's reason. It's a much bigger idea than in English. but it does mean word and reason. So autou refers back to that word though. So you could say all things through him. Really, honestly, it'd be better to say all things through it, because for now we haven't called the word Jesus. He is still the Word unincarnate, existing, from the beginning of all time. So all things through him, eganetah. Y'all write this one down, definitely. You don't have to write all that down, but just write eganetah down. It's an interesting word. It comes up a
Pronounce it
lot.
one more time.
Eganetah. Eganetah. It's where the word Genesis comes from. That's where the word regenerate comes from. Looking at your English, what do you think the word means? Or what do you think would be a fair translation of the word?
Him.
Oh, we got him over here. Remember,
Oh,
all
right.
things through him, eganetah.
Without?
No, because we haven't got to and yet. Remember, and, that word kai, is that,
What you did?
that word kai is our punctuation.
Semicolons. Kai is in.
Kai is and. So before kai, before and,
King James, like a semicolon. And then him.
all right, read verse 3 for me.
All things made by him.
Okay, all things were, verse 3?
All things were made through him.
All things were made by him.
Well, I said through him.
See, I don't like that.
Me
I
either.
said through him.
I don't like it because all things were made is not a very good translation of that.
And I read mine said King James.
Let's see what the ESV has to say.
Yeah, this is King James, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yours says by him?
Mm-hmm.
And mine said
No,
through him.
remember,
Mine says through him.
this is through him. Diautou is through him.
Okay.
The word order is different in Greek. Panta, repeat it to me. Panta,
Fine.
D.
D.
Now I'm going to erase that alpha because that's what's on the page. You can look at your page too if you like. And you do need to get familiar with looking at what the page looks like and find out where. Verse 3, Panta, D, Autou, eganetah.
Eganetah.
All things through him
All things through him.
came into being.
Oh, that's what that means.
Came into being.
Came into being.
Yes.
Came into being.
Mhm. But I have, in the ESV, I also have all things were made through him. I prefer came into being. Okay, again a thought. It comes up a lot in different Gospels. Luke uses it a lot. It can mean it happened. It can mean something became something else. Here it means it came into being, so it came into existence. It did not exist before, and then it came into existence. It can mean was born. Y'all's Bible's translated as was made. It's a big word, and remember what I said at the beginning of class. There's no one-to-one. So the word eganetah doesn't really have a good word in English. You got to learn all the senses of it and figure out what a good translation would be based on that. Okay. But really key here is the word order. All right. Diautou is through him. Just because it's the last word in that section doesn't mean that it's going to be the last word in the English. All right. You got to know, and we're not going to be. I'm going to have you guys translate with the assistance of the English text next to you, but you gotta take a step back and think that just because it's in a certain order in Greek doesn't mean it's going to be the same order in English. All right, so let's go on.
We all need to be going out the same Bible.
I mean, to say all things were made through him is a fair translation of it, but grammatically speaking, it's not a passive verb. So like, say something was made, that implies that there is a maker, and Christ is the maker. But grammatically speaking, the subject of the sentence is all things. So we're talking about what did all things do? Well, they came into being. They started to exist. Okay, verse 4. I'm going to tell you like 2 words, and then I'm going to have you do the rest on your own. Start writing out verse 4 like we wrote out verse 1. And I'm going to tell you 1 word. I'm going to tell you 2 words, and then I'm going to have you figure out the rest. You can sit with someone else and work with someone else. But I'm going to show you just how much you guys can figure out just from putting the Greek and the English next to each other. And I lied. I'm going to be mean. I'm going to make you do the first part of verse 5 too. All y'all 5. I know. You got it already. Is there any more coffee left? Yeah? You want some more?
No.
Anybody want a little bit?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Just gonna be right at that.
Okay.
I thought I told you to put the pen down.
Oh. You need Albert blood.
Are y'all at Kai yet?
And.
Are y'all there yet?
Just about.
Just about? Okay.
Yeah.
Y'all skipping 2 lines, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you got it sideways.
I'm gonna go sideways.
Okay.
I'm gonna do it this way.
You gonna be up all night?
Oh, no. Well, I work night shift anyway, so
Oh, okay.
it's not so bad.
Where do you work?
Well, I recently resigned at Richland County EMS, and I'm planning to move to Atlanta soon, but I've been working at Richland County EMS for the past 6 months.
Where did it, three, like EMS, where you fall?
Hmm?
grandfather was first black EMS in Great Falls,
Oh, yeah?
25 years.
Good man. I guess, yeah, I mean, I guess he's a good man.
Awesome.
There's a lot of lousy people in EMS, but
Don't talk about that.
I ain't talking about him. I ain't talking about him. I don't know.
Fight word, man.
I'm sure he's a good man.
Mighty good man.
What you crazy?
No.
I like that, man. Y'all know that.
All right, is everyone at Scotia?
Getting there, man, and start playing. Got to catch up with you.
Mm-hmm.
Is everyone at Scotia?
About to get there.
Carla ain't telling us the whole truth.
Hmm?
She done took Greek before.
Oh, me? No, sorry. I just write fast.
We're gonna do this,
That you.
and then we're gonna wrap it up. I'm gonna give you one homework assignment.
It's good, man. It's just something.
I'm gonna
Shake
give
us up.
you one homework assignment tonight, and the next time we're gonna do some more reading together, and some more writing. So I do want you to practice. All right, even if it's just opening up the Bible. I'm gonna give you 2 homework assignments. I lied. I was planning on giving you 2 anyway, so I'm gonna make one a little easier. I don't want you to be too burdened. If you ain't had to memorize anything yet, except the alphabet, but no, you don't have to memorize any words yet. I want you to put aside these words, ain and kai. You know, keep them off on the side of your page, and sort of have a mental flag there so you know what those words are. When you see them on the page, you can know where the word and is. You can know where the word was is. But and as you see an important word, and we talk about it in class, write it down as well. You know, logos is an important word. I mean, even before you came in here, you knew logos was an important word, right? Y'all heard that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. People pronounce it wrongly all the time. Logos. It's not logos. It's logos. But we'll forgive them that. All right. We got everything written?
Homeschool. What is that? Let's see here.
Okay. All right. I want you to look in your books, not at the board. I want you to look at verse 4. And I want you to repeat after me, okay? In auto,
And
Alto,
zoe, ain,
the way
kai,
Kai,
he zoe,
Hazel,
ain,
Ain,
tophos,
Tolos,
tone,
Tom,
anthropon.
Trombone,
Anthropon.
Anthropon,
All right, so we look at the word again. Pone, that's pi, omega. What's that letter?
It's not still.
It will.
Nu,
Nu. All right, pi, omega, nu, pone.
Home,
What's that letter?
They,
Theta. Theta. So thropone,
Topon,
thropone, anthropone,
Anthropon,
alpha,
Alpha,
nu,
Nu,
theta,
Theta,
rho,
Rho,
omega,
Omega,
Chi, verse 5. Tophos, in te scotia, fine. What's that letter? Phi. Can you spell it out for me, recorder?
What?
Can you spell it out for me? Give it a shot.
The word with it?
Yeah. I'll help you. You got that one right?
Oh, 5.
Phi.
Man, no, I can't do it.
Okay. What's the first letter of the alphabet?
Alpha.
Alpha. Phi. Alpha. Iota.
Oh, that's what I missed.
What's this one right here? Nu. Good.
Epsilon.
Epsilon.
Iota.
Iota. Good. Phi, alpha, iota, nu, epsilon, iota. Okay. We read it in Greek. We pronounced it in Greek. Which words do we recognize from the earlier verses? Which words did I have you write on the side of the page? Kai. What does it mean? And. It comes up twice, right? Which other words are there?
In.
In, what does that mean? Which one? In or an?
In.
In, what does it mean?
I
In. Okay, good. What else?
Was and
Which word is was? Read it in Greek.
That new, right there,
beside and
Right there.
Pronounce it.
No.
Ain.
Ain.
Ada, nu. Ain. What does it mean? Was. Where else does it occur?
We got I in twice.
We do. We have it twice.
It also
We have was.
was twice.
We have was twice. Okay. Now, alto, we saw diautu in go back to verse 3. What did diautu mean? Panta diautu. Panta meant all things.
Were made.
That was again a talk. Panta diautu, we said all things through him or through it. All right, so in him. All right. So you got your Greek written out.
Oh, okay. Because I didn't finish it.
You've got your Greek written out. You plugged in words that we recognize from the earlier verses, the symbol words. All right, we plugged in and, we plugged in was, we plugged in, we plugged in him. What words come up more than once in the Greek here? New words that we haven't seen yet. What are some things like look at what you wrote down or look at it in the book? Which words come up twice or 3 times?
Yeah, that's our third word right there.
What's this one? What's the letter? Zeta. Zeta, omega, eta.
Nu.
Eta.
Eta.
It looks like an N, but it's not an N. Zeta, omega, eta, that's pronounced Zoe. It comes up twice, he said, right? All right, so you can do a little circle there. What other words come up twice in this little section?
Cheat.
right on top of it.
Talk.
Right beside it, and the one.
Phi, omega, sigma. Repeat after me. Phos. Tophos. That comes up twice, right? All right, well, sit next to somebody and look at the English and tell me what you think those words are.
That life.
What?
Life.
Good.
I already said
I didn't hear you say it.
Yeah, you look at me like I was crazy right now, like maybe that's wrong.
No, life. Inhale.
That was life.
Life.
Life was and
Hi. I'm sorry.
I heard you say life.
So what's the rest of it?
Was
In him,
the light.
in him life was, and the life was to.
Look at your English.
How do you say that again?
Tophos. Tophos.
Verse 5.
Verse 4. End of verse 4.
And the life was the light. Meaning.
The light.
The light.
Light of men. And the light shines in darkness. Yeah. Don't get hung up on the word the, though. You see that it doesn't occur every time in English like it does in Greek.
Okay.
You see what you did there, though? You wrote a foreign language down, and you looked at the English next to it, and you were able to figure out two words that you didn't know before just from comparing the two. You plugged in what you knew. You circled all the stuff that came up more than once, and you compared it to what came up more than once in English, and you figured out which word was Zoe and which word was Phos. That'll probably be your homework assignment next
Can we
week.
call you back from class?
That'll probably be your homework assignment next week.
Call you back.
We'll do 1 John 1 and 2. Work on that together.
Okay.
But we're going to keep doing this line by line. Okay. You got any questions about this? About the letters? About the sounds? About anything in particular?
Just gonna take a minute.
Yeah, let's take a minute. Let's read through this one more time together. Anybody can do that one? In. Alto.
Alto.
Zoe.
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 All right, let's start over. We'll do a little. In alto.
In alto.
In alto.
In alto.
Zoe.
Zoe.
Ain.
And Kai.
Kai. Hey Zoe.
Hey Zoe.
Hazel.
Ain.
Ain.
Tophos. Tophos. Tone.
Don.
Anthropon.
Anthropon.
Kai.
Kai.
Tophos. In. Te Scotia. Scotia.
Scotia.
Scotia.
Scotia.
What's that letter? Sigma. Sigma.
Sigma. Cool. Six.
Yeah.
Sigma. What's the next one?
Kappa.
Alto. Oh.
Omicron.
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 Tau.
Tau.
Iota.
Iota.
A.
Alpha.
Alpha. Okay. Phine. Phine.
Right.
Okay. So for homework,
You gonna get it. We all will.
Yeah, Me stupid.
Homework, you want to work on your writing speed. So, yeah, so first thing I want you to do for homework, flip to the back. I don't have chalk on my pants, do I?
No.
I'm afraid of that, turning around every time. Okay, flip to the back and find Ioanu Alpha. This is the epistle of 1 John.
Oh.
To the letter of 1 John, Ioanu Alpha. It'll be after Petru. If you see Petru, which is of Peter. It'll be after that. Anybody need some help?
Oh,
I got that.
okay.
You got second one, right?
Alright, so that's the apocalypse of John, so that's Revelation.
Eight,
of
thirteen.
John.